All right, today we're going on a kind of spiritual journey. We're going to dive into 5 really powerful Psalms, chapters 21 through 25. Think of them like a map that shows us the highest peaks of victory, the darkest valleys of suffering, and even the quiet paths of humility that really shape a life of faith. So here's the path we're going to take. We'll kick things off at the very peak with the incredible triumph in Psalm 21. Then we're going to descend into the valley of suffering in Psalm 22, but don't worry, we'll find a beautiful oasis of comfort in Psalm 23. From there, we climb the mountain of worship in Psalm 24, and we'll finish up by walking the quiet path of humility in Psalm 25. It's a whole emotional and spiritual journey packed into just 5 chapters. Okay, so let's start at the absolute highest point, a massive victory celebration. That's what Psalm 21 is all about. It's kind of like a royal anthem, this huge song of thanksgiving for a king's success in battle. But here's the twist. The focus isn't really on the king's strength or his strategy. No, it's all about the real source of that power. I mean, this psalm is just overflowing with gratitude, right? But if you look closely, you'll see how every single bit of that praise is directed upward. The king's strength, the protection he received, all those blessings. The psalm makes it super clear that all of it flows directly from God's faithfulness. It's just this incredibly powerful statement about where true, lasting power really comes from. So the big lesson here is pretty timeless, you know? It's all about gratitude and acknowledging where our success actually comes from. Real strength, the kind that lasts, isn't something we build on our own. It's built on trust. Now, hold on, because right after this peak of celebration, our journey takes a really sharp, sudden turn. A turn that reminds us that faith isn't just about the triumphs. And just like that, from that sunlit peak of victory, we are plunged straight into the darkest valley imaginable. We've arrived at Psalm 22. And honestly, this is one of the most heart-wrenching, gut-punching passages in the entire Bible. It's just a raw, unfiltered cry of pure anguish and abandonment. Wow. The contrast could not be more jarring, could it? I mean, we go from a king celebrating God's strength to a person crying out in what feels like total, complete desolation. This is so much more than just a mood swing. It's a massive shift that forces us to look at the most painful questions we have about faith, especially those moments when God feels a million miles away. Now, this psalm, it carries this incredible prophetic weight, especially in Christian theology. It's seen as a direct foreshadowing of the suffering of the Messiah. I mean, think about it. The cry of abandonment, the public mockery and scorn, the piercing of hands and feet, even casting lots for clothing. These details are so stunningly specific, and they echo exactly what we read in the New Testament accounts of the crucifixion. It's like it maps out the entire path, from unimaginable suffering all the way to ultimate victory. So what are we supposed to do with a passage this heavy? Well, a couple of things. First, it tells us our pain is valid. It gives us permission to cry out to God with our hardest questions, to be honest about feeling abandoned. But it also points to something deeper. It suggests that sometimes suffering can have a purpose we just can't see, and that even from the absolute depths of despair, a story of deliverance and eventually praise can be born. Okay, after the deep, deep valley of Psalm 22, our journey finally brings us to an oasis, a place of just profound comfort and peace. And it's a familiar one. We're at Psalm 23, maybe the most famous psalm ever written. It's that beautiful, intimate picture of God's personal care, using that timeless metaphor of a shepherd and his sheep. And what's amazing is how the psalm breaks down the shepherd's care. He's not some distant king. He's a hands-on guide. You see it step by step. He provides rest, those green pastures. He guides us on the right paths. He comforts us when we're in the darkest valleys. He even prepares a feast for us in front of our enemies. And finally, he promises us an eternal home with him. It's this perfect, complete picture of provision and protection. And right there, that's the absolute heart of this psalm's comfort. Did you notice? It doesn't say we get to avoid the valley of the shadow of death. It says we walk through it. The promise isn't that there won't be darkness. The promise is that the shepherd will be right there with us in the darkness. His rod and his staff, tools for protection and guidance, they become sources of comfort because they're a constant reminder that we are not walking alone. So really, the big lesson here all comes down to trust. Real peace, true peace. It isn't about having a life with no problems. It's about trusting the guide. It's about knowing his presence is a constant, not just a sometimes thing. And it's about being able to rest, knowing that our final destination is secure with Him. All right, now that we're refreshed from that oasis, our journey takes another turn. This time, we're heading upward. We're starting the ascent to worship. Psalm 24 completely shifts our perspective. We go from thinking about God's personal care for us to His massive cosmic sovereignty over everything. We're getting ready to meet the King of all creation. And this psalmist just kicks off with this huge, sweeping declaration. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Wow. This isn't just a nice spiritual thought. It's a statement of absolute authority over every single thing. It really sets the stage for the kind of holy, powerful king we're about to meet. But then the psalm pivots. It goes from this huge, cosmic scale right down to something deeply personal. After declaring God owns everything, it asks this really critical question. Okay, if God is that great and that holy, who on earth is even worthy to approach Him? Who can climb His holy mountain and actually stand in His presence? And the psalm gives us the answer. And what's fascinating is that the qualification isn't about rituals or ceremonies. It's all about character. Clean hands, that's about what you do, your actions. A pure heart, well, that's about why you do it, your motives. It's talking about a life of integrity. A life that isn't chasing worthless things or built on lies. Turns out, holiness of character is what's required for true worship. Okay, and this is where the psalm builds to this incredible dramatic climax. It actually speaks to the ancient gates of a city like they're alive and commands them to open up because a great and glorious king is about to arrive. You can almost feel the tension and the anticipation building in these lines. It's like a call for all of creation to just make way. And you can just picture it, right? A voice from inside the city walls calls back, sort of challenging them, which only adds to the drama. The voice asks, who is this King of glory? Who is this king who demands we open the gates for him? And then comes the answer, and it's so powerful, they say it twice. The King of glory is the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. It's none other than the Lord Himself, the victorious warrior, the commander of all the armies of heaven. I mean, what an incredible declaration of His identity and His power. So what's the big lesson from this climb up the mountain? Well, it seems pretty clear. First, we're meant to understand God's total authority over everything. Second, we're called to pursue personal holiness. And finally, we're supposed to see that call to the gates as a personal invitation for each of us, an invitation to open up our own hearts and let that very same King of Glory come in. But you know what? Our journey doesn't end there, on that triumphant mountaintop of worship. It actually concludes on a quiet, humble path. Psalm 25 brings us right back down to earth, to the reality of everyday life. It's this beautiful, heartfelt prayer for guidance from someone who is admitting they just don't have all the answers. And the key to this whole prayer is its humility. The person praying isn't making demands. Instead, they're just acknowledging that they need direction. They're honest about their mistakes, they put all their trust in God's mercy and His promises, and they ask for help with the real-world struggles they're facing. And this, I think, brings our whole journey to such a beautiful conclusion. Because you see, the great and mighty King of Glory from Psalm 24 is the exact same God who is the gentle teacher in Psalm 25, the one who teaches sinners in the way and guides the humble. It shows us that humility is really the key that unlocks God's guidance, and that a life of faith, well, it's not a destination. It's a continuous, lifelong journey of learning how to walk His path. So there you have it. We've traveled from the highest peak of victory down through the deepest valley of suffering. We rested at the oasis of comfort, climbed the mountain to worship the King, and finally we walked the path of humility. This whole journey, this map of the spiritual life, it leaves us with just one question to think about. Where on that path do you find yourself today?